Welcome everybody, this is Microsoft 365 Platform Community Call. It is May 17th. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a product manager. I'm still trying to learn this because we used to be program managers, but we're product managers now. It actually didn't change anything other than the title, but I'm a product manager in Microsoft 365 Platform. And today we'll have two demos, but before the demos, we will do a recap of some of the assets which are available and latest news within the Microsoft 365 area, focusing more on the platform side, and then we'll do the group photo so to get a more picture as well. Two demos today. So we have Monica starting with the integrate Graph Microsoft Graph. I'm missing the Microsoft in front of it, just to clarify, Microsoft Graph Connector content on office.com. And then the second demo is with Waldek and Paolo, your Microsoft 365 app within the fingertips of employees with Viva Connection. And it's a cool story as well. Now, bit of a pointer, just call out for, I think, Brian and David, because I know that both are on the edge because Paolo is not on the call yet. He will be joining half past. So we don't need to rush. Before that, he's joining half past because of other commitments as well, and then we'll move to Waldek's and Paolo's demos on there. Now, let's actually get moving on the slide. So, quick recap on the general assets, which we're always recapping in here. We do have a lot of assets available. We have two different YouTube channels. We have the Microsoft 365 Developer Videos YouTube channel, where we have so-called, in quotes, official guidance videos from cloud advocates and from marketing. And then we have our Microsoft 365 Community Videos channel, where we have all of the community call recordings and individual demos from these community calls, and a few other videos as well from a few different group of organizations in Microsoft. We have a lot of open source assets across multiple different locations and organizations in GitHub. We also have a lot of sample galleries. So as we have so many samples, it might be really difficult to find what's relevant for you. So we do have then a specific sample galleries. We have the one which is AKMS M365/samples, which is the unified sample gallery, and then we have specific sample galleries for specific areas. And this is intended to make it easier for you to find what's relevant for you. So trying to find the easiest sample or the sample which is matching your business case and business requirements from where you can start, rather than always starting from scratch. And if you're wondering that there's so many URLs to remember, luckily there's actually only one, which is AKMS/M365/community, and you will land on our Microsoft 365 Platform community page, trying to speak English, it's hard. Microsoft 365 Platform community page, and from where you can get access on all of the different assets which are available from Microsoft and from other people in the community, because a lot of these assets which are getting built are contributed by our open source community through multiple different channels. Now, we wanted to always recap. We do have quite a few community calls happening. So we do have this weekly community call happening Tuesdays at 8 a.m. Pacific time. This call is on a summer break between July and August. We're trying to make sure that we don't have calls. We want to make the presenters and also you the opportunity to have a break, and we want to have it a bit more easier during summertime. We have also other community calls as well, like Adaptive Cards, Microsoft Identity Platform, Office Add-ins, and Power Platform community calls, which are happening once a month. Power Platform community call, by the way, happens tomorrow, so you probably want to get that one in your schedule. And then we have two recurrent bi-weekly calls happening on every single Thursday. So we technically have at least one or two community calls every single week, which is pretty cool. If you're looking into downloading the invites of these, go to the AKMS M365/calls. That is actually on the same page as our community assets. From there, you can download the recurrent ICS files, which makes it easier to understand what's happening and where. Now, a few assets. I'm trying to squeeze this in a bit smaller area, but we want to promote this in every single call because, surprisingly, not that surprisingly, there's always new people joining on this call. So there's always new people who give us feedback related on, I wasn't aware of this stuff. So first of all, as a developer, you should be subscribing on the Microsoft 365 developer program, because from there you will get a free E5 tenant, which you can use for developer usage. And that's a really, really great asset. And as long as you use that tenant for developer purposes, it will renew automatically in every single 90 days. The other really powerful asset and location is AKMS M365 Dev and Learn, from where you will find 82 modules, roughly somewhere around that area, on the development of Microsoft 365 platform. So a lot of awesome free guidance available for you to take advantage. We also have two different podcasts or video blogs, which is the Microsoft 365 Developer Podcast, hosted by Jeremy Fake from the Microsoft Crafting, with Paul Schäferlein from Add-in 365. And then we have our Microsoft 365 PMP Weekly, which is hosted by Waldek Mastercard from a Cloud Advocates team, Microsoft 365 Cloud Advocates team, and yours truly, Vesa Juvonen from the platform team, Microsoft 365 platform team. Now, I talked about the samples. They are super valuable, because again, the samples make it easier to you to understand where to get started. And a lot of these samples, some of the samples are really cool and comprehensive. Some of them are a bit more simplified. And that is by design, because we actually want to have a scenario and a code example for as much of the different things as possible. So whenever you are looking into how would I do a bot in a specific version of Microsoft Teams in a bot framework, how would I do a bot in a Node.js, how would I implement a messaging extension, how would I do an Office and Outlook application using the Teams Toolkit SDK v2, you can go to one location, you can use those texts and strings as your query parameters, and you will find the relevant samples provided by Microsoft or by the community. So AKMS M365 samples is the address of this particular location. Now, as you then find the sample, you might not be super familiar on how would I actually get started with the sample? What do I need to do to get actually started on using that? And that's why we have our Sharing is Caring initiative. And David, will you do a quick intro on this one?
Absolutely. Thank you, Vesa. As Vesa mentioned, we have a wide array of opportunity for you to contribute to those samples, but sometimes GitHub is hard, right? What do those phrases mean? Pull request and fork and raw and blame. They can be confusing. Sharing is Caring is a program here to provide you hands-on safe space guidance on how you can submit your samples, whether it be Power Platform, whether it be updating documentation, whether it be writing new documentation. We want to provide you hands-on safe space guidance on how to accomplish just that. These are live sessions where you'll learn together. We'll walk you through it together, and you'll collaborate with others in the community. They're absolutely free. They are not recorded, so you're free to ask any and all questions. We've got upcoming sessions on Power Platform samples, community content, and our newest, Writing for the Web. If you'd like to learn a little bit more, Emily Mancini and Hugo Bernier will be leading that. There's 2 upcoming dates, so check them out. We invite anyone and everyone to join. Vesa, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, David, on that one. And these get so good feedback, so don't miss out. They are really great sessions to get started. And also not just getting started, but understanding specific things which you might not be familiar. So check out the AKMS Sharing is Caring address. Now, a few news from the Microsoft 365 developer side, or from the Teams and the Viva side of the house. So first of all, we have 3 new blog posts in the Microsoft 365 developer blog. 2 blog posts related on specific changes in the Office add-in side. So first of all, in the Office adding specific for Excel, there's a new API for Power Query read-only data, so you can easily query the data within your Excel workbook. Then there's a changes announced related on Office add-ins execute function commands, and this is when you're executing an external function within your Office add-in, and that's there are some adjustments coming related on this one because of security reason. And then there's this great summary blog post and article from Bob German focuses on Natalie Katz's video, which talks about how would you publish an app to the Microsoft Teams App Store. So as you build an application for Microsoft Teams, what are the steps of actually publishing that one in the App Store? So using the Partner Center and then getting that into App Stores to be available for people to consume. So really great video as well. And then on the Teams blog, we only had one new blog, which was more around celebrating the 1 year together with the Microsoft Teams webinars, and kind of a nice summary blog post related on the Microsoft Teams webinars features. And they also talk with the people behind of actually building that capability within the Microsoft Teams. So you probably want to check that one out as well. Related on Microsoft Teams, we do have actually quite a lot of changes coming up all the time, and also improvements in the Microsoft Teams platform documentation, and we want to call them out within this weekly call as well. I'll let Surpi to actually do a quick recap on what's happening in the Microsoft Teams platform documentation side.
Thank you, Vesa. Hello, everyone. I'll walk you through the platform and documentation updates. Let's start with the platform updates on the left. We've published a new scenario-based sample which shows how respective stakeholders can get notified when new work item is created in Azure DevOps. This sample listens to work item created even and creates a group chat with stakeholders using Graph APIs. It also sends a proactive message in a group chat with task details of newly created chat using bot. This can also be extended to post regular updates. This sample is already published in GitHub repo at aka.ms team samples bot release manage folder. Now let's move to the doc updates on the right. We have introduced glossary and we believe that it will help you find the definition about a term quickly without the need for searching outside of docs. If you'd want us to add more terms or have any feedback, please do let us know. So these were the platform updates. If you have any feedback or suggestion, please post on aka.ms Teams platform feedback. The link is given in the footer. You could also follow us on Twitter and configure to the RSS feeds to get regular platform updates. Thank you, and over to you, Vesa.
Thank you. Excellent. Really, really cool to see the improvements in here. And that glossary is actually really great idea. It's certainly helped. And especially as Microsoft employees, we always use abbreviations and terminology which the external audience might not actually understand. So it's really cool to have that glossary in place for sure. Now, few events, or the most important event for in a year for developers in Microsoft Cloud is coming next week. So May 24th to 26th is the Microsoft Build. This is happening once again in remotely this year. It might be that will be in person in a year from now, but no promises on that at this point. Now, this is a remote free event where you can register, and there will be a schedule available for you to then see all of the on-demand videos and also the scheduled videos, which will be later available as a recording. But you certainly want to register to my build at Microsoft.com to see the schedule and all of the core sessions which are available. Now, especially related on Microsoft 365 sessions, or like in this build, we call them as a collaborative app sessions, and there is now a collaborative session schedule available for you to take advantage. So if you go to the https://akms/teams sessions, it will actually list all of the different collaborative app sessions which are available next week between the 24th and 25th of May. So really good asset on looking into what kind of breakout sessions are there, what kind of on-demand sessions and on-demand videos, and there's some Ask the Expert sessions and product roundtables and even more. So if you have questions related on Microsoft Teams development, you want to probably check out Ask the Expert sessions or Microsoft Graph. There's specific Ask the Expert sessions on those. And product roundtables are more on the engineering and Microsoft asking input from your side. So as an example, there's a product roundtable for Viva Connection extensibility on asking on, hey, so what are the things what you would like to have here? Or in the SharePoint framework side, what are the things what you would like to see in the future for SharePoint framework, which is a super critical thing for engineering to know. But please go to the https AKMS team sessions to have a full catalog on that. And now, before we go to the actual demos of today, let's do a quick crew photo to get a mode picture, and I will start my computation. And I will get you in the screen in a second. Today, we're going to use something different than the white one. Whenever we get there, here we go. Nice. Let's actually do that one. Auditorium is good. We have 50 seats in the room. And let's wait for a few more people to join on the call. And I will put my video on as well. Here we go. Did I get there already? I don't see myself. Maybe I did, but I can't see myself. Let me put the recording on and let's do some hand waving, everybody, for the other people in the community. We can see more people joining. Excellent. Thank you for everybody joining. Let's do some hand waving. Now I can see myself on the screen. I can see David on that side. There we go. Excellent. Oh, we get more people. Let's do some hand waving. We are still getting people in the room. Excellent. There's some free seats. Excellent. We'll grab a GIF animation out of that as well. Thanks everybody for joining on that one. So I will get a GIF animation on that. as we move to the actual stars of the day. So we'll start with Monica, related on Microsoft integrating Microsoft Graph Connector content on the office.com. And then after her, we will move with Waldek and Paolo on the Viva Connection and Microsoft Teams and SPFX storyline. But Monica, are you good to go?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hey everyone, my name is Monica. I am a product manager on the Graph Connectors team. And today I'm going to be talking to you guys about how you can integrate Graph Connector content into various M365 experiences. So Office.com, search, and some new experiences that'll be coming your way, like Context IQ, etc. I'll first talk a little bit about what Microsoft Search is and what Graph Connectors are and why they're useful. Then I'll go into a brief demo of like Graph Connectors in action alongside Microsoft Search and other M365 experiences. And then I will talk a little bit about how this demo was built. Like how can one build a Graph Connector given the publicly available APIs that we have? And yeah, that's the gist of it. And then I'll just kind of close with some resources, and also feel free to stop me anytime and ask any questions that you'd like. I'm sure if you have a question, there's somebody else in the group who also has the same question. So it's just good to facilitate that dialogue. So, all right, cool. So what is the problem statement here? So today, organizational data is growing exponentially. And a lot of this data lives in silos. And so a major problem that employees face within organizations is that they spend 20 to 30% of their time at work searching for information. They can't find the information because this information is spread across, various, data silos. So, what we need is modern workers to be able to find and discover that information as quickly and efficiently as possible. So us as Microsoft have a solution, Microsoft Search, which is an AI-powered modern search for your workplace. And it's included within M365. Essentially, it allows users or employees across organizations to find all of the relevant and personalized content across all of the applications. The data is always secure, and employees can search from any device anywhere. And so how does Graph Connectors kind of fit into this? So essentially, like I mentioned, a lot of this data lives in a bunch of silos. So a lot of the items or files that employees work on may not be just OneDrive and SharePoint files. The files or items might be like ServiceNow articles or Jira tickets or Salesforce contacts opportunities. Like there's so many other types of items that people interact with on a day-to-day basis. And so what Graph Connectors does, it allows your organization to connect your data into the Microsoft Graph and bring that data and surface it across Microsoft Search so that your employees or your users can essentially find all of their relevant content using Microsoft Search. And today we have over 130 data sources supported, and these publicly available APIs enable you to develop your own custom Graph Connector. Connected data becomes part of Microsoft Graph, and it can participate in multiple M365 experiences. To name a few, we have Search, Context IQ, Recommendations, Viva Topics will be coming, eDiscovery as well, and more. We're working on that. All right, and then I think that brings us into our demo. Yeah, so let's see this in action. So it's about a 3 to 4 minute demo. You can just play that. Yeah, click play, and then take it away. Yeah.
I can go to any of the Microsoft Search endpoints, which include Office.com, SharePoint, and Bing at Work, and search for marketing. Under All, I can see search results from OneDrive and SharePoint. On the same page, I can also see results from Figma. If I wanted to see more Figma results, I can navigate to the Figma tab. From here, I can open the branding case study Figma file I was looking for and continue my work. After making some edits to the case study file, I want to share it in an email with Meredith, a close collaborator on the project, to request their feedback. I create a new email addressing it to them and write, "Hey Meredith, could you please take a look at this Figma file and get back to me with your thoughts?" When I enter editor using Context IQ provides a list of suggested people and files relevant to me that I can include in my email. As I type more, the editor using Context IQ provides me a smaller list of suggestions relevant to the context of my email. When I select the branding case study Figma file, an adaptive card is inserted showing me information about the item, including the title, the link, last edit time, and an image preview. This email looks good, so I press send. Sometime later, I follow up with Meredith on Teams to see if they were able to check out the case study I had sent over. They said they hadn't seen it yet, but that they can go to their office.com homepage to find the shared Figma file among other recently worked on or shared items. As Meredith, I can navigate to office.com. Under Quick Access, I am able to find the Figma file Bob shared with me. I can then click on it and review the file. After reviewing the file, I let Bob know that the case study looks great and that I'm going to share it in our Teams channel so that others can take a look and provide their thoughts. I write, "Please check out this case study Bob and I worked on." I can attach the case study Figma file using the Search Your Workplace messaging extension on Teams. I can select the Workplace search icon here, navigate to Other Content, and search for branding. When I select this Figma file, an adaptive card is inserted showing me information about the item. The message looks good, so I can go ahead and share.
I think that takes us to the end of the demo. Awesome. Essentially, this demo outlined the power of graph connectors. So we built a custom Figma connector and demonstrated how this content can surface across search. That was the first part of the demo. And then secondly, we saw how that content could be searched for using Context IQ within Outlook Editor. And then it popped up that adaptive card in a very neat, clean way, and you're able to share that with others. And then we were able to see how that also showed up in office.com because, you know, Bob shared that item with Meredith, so it showed up in her office.com and also Bob's office.com. And then lastly, you know, we can see the power of the workplace, Search Your Workplace message extension to show that Figma item as well in like a clean adaptive card. And then we're able to share that within Teams. So that's the power of graph connectors. So now let's dive into how one could build your own graph connector. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the graph connector anatomy. What are the main pieces of it? And then we'll go into some code samples. Yeah. So there are three high-level components to building a graph connector. So, you know, firstly, you need to create a connection. And what this entails, it means you're defining your connection object, you're updating the configuration file for the experiences, and you're providing additional, optional connection configuration information. Secondly, you need to create and register your schema. And what this entails is you're creating a new schema object, properties and their attributes, labels, and aliases. So you're basically telling us, for a given item, what are all of the different properties that are important to that item, and how should all of those properties behave in search, and what does each property semantically mean? And all of that information is used in powering these experiences. And then, so you have to register the schema before adding items to the connection as well. That's an important point. And then lastly, you need to index those items with their ACLs. So this is about bringing in that data into Graph. So this means creating, updating, and deleting items and creating, updating, deleting external groups and group members. So this is part of the data sync process. So the first piece, like I mentioned, is about creating a connection. So this is a sample call. And so you need to provide some sort of connection ID, a descriptive name about the connection. And then you would, like for enabled content experiences, you would essentially include what are the different experiences you want that connector to participate in. And then depending on the experience that you want to light up, there are some requirements associated with that. For example, for the office.com scenario, the activity settings piece is a requirement. And within activity settings, there's this piece called URL to item resolvers, which basically provides us a way to resolve URLs that are shared within Teams and Outlook to the item ID. So we can detect that share activity between those two users and then recommend that content to those users because, we know that it's important to them. So the second component, like I mentioned, was to create your schema or register your schema. So here in this example, we have the title as one property, and then we also have the author as a property, and you could add as many other properties as you like. And then essentially, you could provide semantic labels here. So the label title basically tells us that all these semantic labels are leveraged in order to determine what properties are shown in the various experiences. So in order to populate the office.com experience, we need to know what the title is, we need to know what the URL is, we need to know the icon URL, etc. So these semantic labels are very helpful in that way. And then the last component, like I mentioned, is to create the external item and push data. So here you can include the ACL. So this is who has access to that item, and all ACLs are honored across all of our endpoints, all of our applications. Like I mentioned, the data is secure. And then the property section maps directly to the schema. So you provide the actual title for that given item, the author, and then any other information you'd like, depending on what your schema was. And then the content is actually the full text index, of that content. So if it was a knowledge-based article, for example, it would just be complete, like the HTML of the entire article itself. So that's that last component. Yeah, and then also as part of, you could add activities as well as part of the item, or you can make this separate call here to append activities to the item itself. Activities is another well-known property on the item. So essentially what activities are, it's basically you're telling us who are the different users within your organization that are doing actions like creates, modifies, comments, views, etc. on that item. So this information is very useful in Power and Context IQ, in Outlook, in Office.com. All of that contextual information about what items are most important to users is super, super useful and powerful in really seamlessly integrating graph connectors into all of the applications and making sure that the content is truly relevant. So here you would include like the type of action right there, the time in which the action happened, and then an AAD ID of that user who did that action. Cool, and then that's kind of the gist of it. That takes me to the end of the different components. Hopefully it is pretty straightforward, and feel free to ask any questions that you have. There are a bunch of resources that I've outlined here if you want to learn more, you want to just go start building graph connectors right now. So we have some admin documentation, some developer documentation, and then the connectors gallery, which shows all the connectors that are either available through the Microsoft built connectors that we have, but also the connectors that our system integrator partners also offer. So yeah, thank you.
Excellent. So Monica, let's do it this way, and that as we have one more demo coming up, we can answer just a few questions in the chat, but if you can answer on those in the chat, that would be awesome.
Perfect.
And this is really, really cool stuff. It's actually a surprisingly simple thing to do. So really, really cool stuff. Thanks, Monica.
All right, can you see my screen?
And I can see the screen. Take it away.
Perfect. All right. So as we build apps on Microsoft 365, they can be of many shapes, sizes, right? Like we have apps that are destinations, that is a web app or an app on your phone, right? These are apps that you explicitly need to open. But the really true power is, when you think of it, to extend your app so that your app spans from all the way being destination, being a web app, being a mobile app, to extension that shows where employees already are. Because we are in Outlook, we're in Teams, we are on Office.com, we are in Viva, right? So there are a number of different apps on Microsoft 365 that we already use for our work. And there's nothing worse, and I guess everybody admits that there's nothing worse than to do a thing for your work and then having to go to another app, to lose the context of your work, having to switch back and forth between multiple apps, because you need that full picture for whatever task you're trying to accomplish. So when you build Microsoft 365 apps, think of it that your apps, the apps that you build for your work, can span from standalone experiences to extensions that show up inside Microsoft 365 where users already are. Let's think about scenario, right? So let's say we wanted to build an application for our company. We're going back to Office, and we still are required to book a seat because we don't want to open up already for everybody. We have limited space, so we want people to book a space ahead of time before they arrive, so that everybody is guaranteed a place to sit, right? And in that scenario, we have few use cases, right? So we are an employee and we're trying to find a seat. We want it for a given date or a portion of the date. And when we arrive in the office, we want to check in to confirm that yes, we're there and we're going to use that seat. It's not available for everybody, right? And then also we have another actor, facilities, who wants to be able to manage the bookings that everybody places, right? And then also afterwards to be able to report on that, right? So there are like when you think about this scenario, you can already envision few ways how you could go about it, how different actors work throughout the workday. Some might be on the go, some might be behind a desk, right? So what are the different ways in which you could support them in their work? And here are a few experiences that you could imagine you would build, right? So we would start on top left, you might have a personal app in Teams, right? That allows people to manage the bookings directly from Teams, so not having to go anywhere else. Imagine that you are an employee and you want to book a seat on the go. You are on your phone, you are in Viva, and directly from there, you can find available seat, book it, and then when you arrive in the office, check in directly from there, not having to build specific dedicated app that you have to open. It's right there available at your fingertips, right? Imagine another app going all the way to the right where you can see as employee the bookings you have already done in the past. So you can see like where you've been when. If we move down all the way to the left, we have a report, Power BI report, that allows facilities and anybody else to see how the different seats are being used over time. And finally, in the middle, for some who prefer that way of work, we can also have intelligent bot, right? That you can kind of use as a personal assistant that understands your intent, to whom you can speak as a human and express your intent. Like, I'm looking for a seat in this place, this type, not more than 5 meters away from a coffee, right? Because that's your thing, right? And it can find for you that spot without you having to worry about that, right? So let's have a look, like how would that work in practice? How you could build a Microsoft 365 app for your workplace that is already present where employees are, where users are, so that they don't need to go to a separate place, lose the context of the work to do the thing they have to do. Paulo, that is your cue. Over to you.
Thank you, Waldek. Thank you for setting the context. And let me start sharing my screen so that I can explain you how this solution has been built. So first of all, just for your own reference, at this URL, github.com/pmp/pmp.safe-365, you can find the whole source code of the solution that Waldek showed us a few seconds ago. And now let me dig into the solution from a practical point of view. First of all, I will show you the user experience when working with the Viva Connection Adaptive Card extension, which will be the main topic of my demo today. Of course, we don't have time enough to cover all of the different flavors of UI that we implemented, but we will focus on Viva Connections now. Here you can see this is my Viva Connection dashboard, and here I have the adaptive card extension through which I can book a seat in a location. Like, for example, I can say that I want to go to the headquarters of my company, and I want to look for a seat tomorrow, and I'm looking for a seat tomorrow morning. And then I can say that I feel lucky and I want just to find a free desk, or I can look for a specific desk because I like that desk. It might be because it is close to the coffee machine or something like that. Let me try to be lucky and let me search for a free desk. And wonderful, I found one desk, desk 01, which is really nice and close to the coffee machine, 5 meters far from the coffee machine. I can book it. And as such, tomorrow I will be able to get into my headquarters, and still using the same adaptive card extension, I will be able to check in or check out when I will be done using the desk. As you can see, the experience from an end user point of view is really straightforward and simple. Now let's dig into the technical solution. So first of all, we decided to use Microsoft lists, and so lists stored in SharePoint Online at the very end, to store the locations, to store the desks, and to store the facilities and all the other stuff that represents the repository and the storage of data for our solution. This is for the sake of simplicity and to give you a solution that you can easily deploy in your own environment to play with it. Then we created a set of APIs on top of the lists in Microsoft Lists. And through these APIs, we make available to all of the different flavors of UI components that we have the functionalities. So let me reduce this one. So we have the API to manage bookings, we have the API to manage desks, and to do all the stuff that we need. For example, if I want to book a location, I can just use the bookings endpoint and do my stuff through this API. This API has been registered in Azure Active Directory, in the tenant where we are using this solution. And technically speaking, this is an app registered in Azure AD, which is exposing an API. So we are making the REST API available to all of the client solutions that we built for the SafeDesk 365. And in order to consume this API, you simply need to have the booking.write permission scope assigned to an application which will rely on our backend API. So now that I've showed you what we have under the cover, let me switch to the actual source code of the adaptive card extension. It is a quite rich one, so I will not dig into every single file, but I will give you an idea of how we implemented it. First of all, we have the adaptive card extension by itself, which is a SharePoint framework component, which inherits from base adaptive card extension. In this component, we have a set of properties and a state, like we do in React components. And from a properties point of view, we simply keep track of the settings, like the URI of the application API that we want to consume and the URL that we want to use and stuff like that. While in the state, we keep track of the status of the UI, and specifically, we keep track of all of the available locations, all of the desks that we have, all of the bookings of the user, and those that are for today and stuff like that. So we keep the state of our application to better manage our logic. Then in the onInit method of our component, of our SPFX component, we do a bunch of things. First of all, we initialize the state of the component. And then in every adaptive card extension that we want to create, we can have two different flavors of UI elements. There could be card views and quick views. What we saw here while booking our desk, this one is called a card view, and it is an experience based on a predefined set of UI templates. We have 3 templates, one just based on text, one based on text and a secondary text, and the third one based on an image, which is the one I'm using right here, so that I can show a nice image and a UI with up to 2 buttons in the UI. Then when you click on one of these buttons, this one is called quick view, and this one is based on a JSON template created using the adaptive card JSON syntax. So here, as long as you rely on the adaptive card schema, you can build whatever kind of UI experience you like. And that's why you were able to see different UI components through the navigation flow of the user. So if I go back here we are simply registering the card views and the quick views that we are going to use in our solution. The welcome one is the one we see by default as the welcome screen of the adaptive card extension. Then we can select the flow when we want to book a new desk. We can go for the free or for the specific desk. We can even get a response that there are no available spots if that is the case. And we can get the confirmation of a check-in or of a checkout when the user will do check-in, check-out. So once we have configured the state and the registration of the cards, we can fetch the actual data from the API. So we rely on a fetch data method that we invoke asynchronously so that we can start rendering the UI of the adaptive card. In fact, as you can see here, if I will refresh, you see we are now loading, and once we will be done, we will have the actual data available. That's what we do in the fetch data. And in the fetch data, we simply work using the functionalities that we have out of the box in SharePoint Framework. What do I mean? Well, whenever you want to consume in SharePoint Framework, whether you are creating an adaptive card extension like we are doing right now, or a web part, or an extension, or a theme stub, doesn't really matter what kind of UI component you are building, but in SharePoint Framework, you can always easily consume an external API, which can be Microsoft Graph or a third-party API. And you can do that safely and securely using Azure Active Directory as the security infrastructure supporting you in the consumption of the backend API. Here, what we do is to use the context of SharePoint Framework to get through the AAD token provider factory object. As you can imagine, based on the name, it is a factory, so it will create something for us. And specifically, it will create a token provider, so an object that we can use to get an access token from a security point of view, from an authorization point of view, that we can then use to consume the target API that we want to use. So we simply create a token provider, and we ask to the token provider to give me a token for the API that I want to consume, which is precisely this application registered in Azure Active Directory, meaning that I will get an access token, which will allow me to consume this REST API, being able to get the bookings, the desks, and all the stuff that I need for my logic. And that's why once I have got the access token, I can create an instance of an object. Here, to have a better and cleaner code, we decided to isolate the client logic to consume the API in a dedicated client class that we have right here. In this client class, we simply use the token that we get through the token provider, and then we use a client object to invoke the backend API. How do we do that? Well, to keep the architecture clean and reusable, we decided to create a package, so an NPM package that we called SafeDesk365-SDK, which is right now in preview version, as you can see. And we are relying on this SDK to consume the backend API, so that whether we will create the ACE, the adaptive card extension here, or the theme stub, or any other, or the bot, or any other solution, we can always rely on the same SDK and reuse the same logic. So what we do here, we rely on our client, and we get the location, we get the bookings, we filter the bookings of today, and then we configure the state of our component. Once we have done that, we need to render the UI, and the UI can be rendered either using the card views or the quick views. I will give you a quick overview of the idea. When we create a card view, this will be a TypeScript class, which will simply define the buttons that we want to show in the UI. And here we simply say, okay, let me see if I have any booking for today. Because if I have any, I will show the button to create a new booking, as well as the button to check in or to check out based on where I am. If I'm already checked in, I will have the button to check out. If I still need to check in, I will see a check in button. Then when the user will click on the button, I will simply associate an action, which will be, for example, let's focus on the action to book a new desk. If I select to book a new desk, I will show a quick view, which is the one built on adaptive card JSON schema, which will be the one I registered before in the onInit method. Let's go to this quick view, and in the book selection quick view, we can see that we have yet another class built with TypeScript again, in which we define the template, so the JSON file, which will render the actual UI of my component. I will provide through a get data method that we have in all of the quick views. I will define the data that I will use to automatically do data binding in the UI of my adaptive card. And then I can eventually manage the triggering of actions inside the UI. So for example, when I click on the book button, this is the quick view, this list of locations and this list of time slots are based on the data binding of an object that I'm providing through the get data method. And you can see here I'm providing the locations. So in the JSON matching to this quick view, I use the adaptive card syntax. Here is version 1.3, and I'm saying that I have a container in which I will show a text, then I will show a choice set, and the items in the choice set will be the locations that I have in my data source. In fact, I say the data source are the locations that I have in my data. And for every location, I will show the name and the address, and the value will be the name. Then I will show the date control of adaptive card syntax, and then I will show another choice to select if it will be the morning or the afternoon. Once I'm done, I will have a button of type submit, which will trigger the action that I have in the quick view right here in the on action in order to start the process of booking my desk. And again, I will rely on my npm package with the client library, and I will execute all of the logic to manage the booking of my desk. So as you can see, you can really create clean and simple solutions where you rely on a back-end API to provide enterprise-level functionalities, and then you can build on top of it any kind of UI components you need and you like for example, an adaptive card extension or a web part like I have right here, which is just yet another SharePoint framework component, still using the same SDK, the same logic, and the same backend API. And that's really powerful because you can easily reuse the same logic, the same code across multiple solutions, all built for the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. I think that's all for me for today. So back to you, Vesa, I guess. And
yep.
Thanks for following this demo.
Excellent. Thank you, Paolo. Really cool stuff. And that is a really nice, cool looking solution. And let me quickly show a few slides and we'll close up after that. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Waldek. Thank you, Paolo. Really, really cool demos. Just a bit of kind of a heads up. As we recreated some of the meetings, we know that some people might be ended up on the old meetings, even though the AKMS address was updated. So that's actually one of the reasons why we didn't have that many attendees today. For sure, but we'll get the attendee numbers back for sure in the future. Now, the recording of this call will be available within 24 hours within the Microsoft 365 community YouTube channel at akms/m365bmp/videos, or m365/videos actually works as well. I need to update that AKMS address to be a bit more simplified. If you're looking into getting notified when the recording is available, please subscribe to Twitter or to that YouTube channel. You cannot access the recording directly from the Teams chat. That unfortunately does not work for non-Microsoft employees as it's getting saved in the Microsoft corporate assets. The next Microsoft 365 platform call is on May 24th. That is actually overlapping a bit with Satya Nadella's keynote from the build. So we will have a one demo and one topic which we'll cover before and half past. So 30 minutes on the call, we'll start watching the Satya Nadella's Microsoft build keynote together as a watch party. So we can then have a discussion and comment the stuff in the chat and see your reactions on what Satya is covering within a keynote. But that's it, and that's the plan for next week. And we'll come back on the normal schedule then the week after that. And that's it for today. Thanks everybody for joining. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Waldek, and thank you, Paula, one more time. And we'll be back within a week, latest within a week, depending on which community calls you're joining. Bye-bye.